Hello YouTube, Tim here. Alright, yesterday now I showed you guys what I did to make a double bow, and it didn't really turn out. My thoughts and my strong opinion is that the main reason why that failed is because the inner bow not only was not flattened in the center, but then it was also reinforced with a 3/4 inch pipe, and that even made it harder to flatten. My intention was to impress it into the mother bow, the larger bow, and the bottom line is when it's round, it wants to twist, and it's going to twist. Plus, 1/2 inch pipe is just not as laterally stable, even when it's round, as 3/4 inch pipe. This 3/4 inch pipe has a larger cross-sectional inertia. It's just more stable. Everything is farther from the central axis. Right now we've got 2 parts of a bow, and I spared you the really boring part of watching me cut and flatten all of this, because this really neither here nor there. You don't need to see all that. We have a 54 inch piece of PVC, which I flattened, importantly, to the center, marked true center, and flattened all the way there. So look at that handle cross-section. This thing will bend quite a lot, and this is weak. The flatter you make it, the weaker it'll be, especially here in the center. Now, you can reinforce it. That'll help, especially if you put something like fiberglass rods in through the center. That way you'll still get that nice flat cross-section, but you'll still be able to mount them together easily. That's the killer. That's the real important part here. And here is another bow, the inner bow, which also flattened all the way to the center. A little bit uneven here around the center, but we're going to heat that, so no big deal. And it's 48 inches long. I made it just like a normal U3 curve, but then I heated the whole inner limb area between the recurve and the center, focusing right in the middle. And then did the usual bend it over my knee until they were equal. So there you go. That's really all there was to it. Nothing too special. So at this stage, there's just a little bit of work to be done, and that's, you can see they're a little bit out of alignment, so a little correction there is necessary, and then basically align the centers, heat them, and clamp them together. Then they can be glued. Once they're like this, that's much harder to twist off of. Once it's flat on flat, and they've been joined like that, you need much less glue to hold it in place. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and try and correct some of the alignment issues here. So just sighting down the limb, I can tell it's not straight, and I think this limb over here needs to be bent that way, just a little bit. Just a little bit. Pretty much the whole limb. Yeah, so if we focus down here, we should be able to just twist it right back into alignment. Typically for twists, if I'm focusing on a single area, I'll start testing after 3 times around. That's very few. But in this case, I'm going to do more like 6. Okay, let's see if that pays any dividends. Needs to go that way, so just grabbing them both, sort of like a bull by its horns. Nope. Probably just 1 or 2 more revolutions. Let's try it again. Okay, great. Definitely soft enough. And now looks like it's much better. Okay, the alignment's fantastic now. Great. See? Much better. So now, what we can do is focus on the important task of heating this central section and then clamping it together with the other part of the bow. That's really all there is to it. Once you've done that, you're making it like any other bow. In this case, I've already cut the nocks on the main bow because I went ahead and I shot it. It's just very, very light and silly, and you know, there's nothing to it. It's a very pleasant bow for such a large one. But now we need to go and shape this. So without further ado, actually let me run the other section that I just heated through the sink, just to make sure we don't excessively deform that. And it did puff up a tiny bit there, but since we're going to be puffing the entire middle, I wasn't too worried. If you are, and if you want to maintain a very flat section on the top, that's doable, but it's not that critical. The bottom is where it needs to be flat, and the bottom should be flat as long as it's clamped very nice and tight to this. Now I have that there for a reason, so let's go ahead and use it. Okay. The degree of reflex here in the center is going to determine a lot. This inner bow, because the outer bow, like I said, pulls maybe 15 pounds at 28 inches. It's very weak. So if you want this bow to have a lot of strength, given the way it's designed right here, you're going to want to use the inner bow to control that. If you make the inner bow extremely curved forward, intensely reflexed, you're going to get a lot more strength out of the bow when you attach the two. And if you don't, I mean, well, you can have still a weaker bow if you're just going for the look. Okay. Let's take that. It looks like it's puffing. So let's align the two notches and clamp. If you want, you can use a piece of wood or something like that to spread the force out over a larger area. I'm not overly concerned, and my fingers are fairly dead to the heat, so I'm just going to pinch it myself with my fingers. Yeah, this is going very well. So see, now you have a good joint, a good mate between these two pieces. Excellent. And any alignment issues, again, remaining, you could get out right now. So the pipe is still soft enough to deform. So I'm just going to sight down it as well right this second, and that looks great. Now all I do from this point on, cut the nocks on the inner bow, and then take well, I string them up to shoot them, but you've got to glue them together somehow. I prefer the use of hot glue, hot melt. It's reversible and it's easy to change. So if I was going to use that, which I am, all I'll do is I'll first take them apart, cover both the surfaces in hot glue, heat them both, press them together just like this, and then once they're stuck together, I'll fill in the joints. I'll go in and fill in either side until it's almost completely filled. You can add as much mass as you like here. It's not going to affect a thing. Because this is dead mass. This isn't moving. Even though it can contribute very powerfully to the performance of a bow, it's not going to affect the arrow speed, let's say. Okay. Looks good. Good enough. That makes me pretty happy. Check the alignment. Just a tiny, tiny tweak. Okay. Like I said, let me go get the hot glue, and then I'll show you that. You don't need too much imagining to see how it goes. It's fairly simple and straightforward, but I'll show you anyway. I won't show you cutting the nocks, but then I will, another day, I'll show you the completed bow and shooting it and going outside and doing that, but it will be essentially the same as the fire bat. The only thing that's different is the curve here is different on the inner bow, the curve is different on the outer bow, but they are still, in principle, the same. This one just has a little bit more of a, I don't know, straightness to it. I like it a little bit more. I was trying to design it so that the nocks would be more than 90 degrees off axis from each other. So 90 degrees from here would be approximately here, and this nock is there. So that's what, 100, 110 degrees maybe? Looks good. That should help to retain the strings even without having to put the strings on in the particular order, because the last bow had to be very careful. Had to put the inner strings on, then the main string, which would hold the other strings on. This should be less fussy. Let me go get the glue and we'll do that. Welcome back. Here we are now. My hot glue gun is fully heated, and so we're ready to begin the joining operation. Just take them like this. I'm going to unplug the hot glue gun so I can bring it over here where you can see it. And I'll show you what I'm doing. I'm just squeezing it out like so. It's going to set. That's okay, because we're going to come back and we're going to reheat it all. See, I ran out. Again, that's fine. I have another stick. You want to do at least the inner 2 inches. Do it generously. Don't feel bad about using quite a lot of glue. Excess will squish out the sides, and anyway, you're going to want to reinforce the sides anyway. So, be generous with your hot glue here. The last thing you want is this kind of a bow coming apart. There are ways that we can reduce the chances of that happening, and I will get into that. In fact, you really probably could just go ahead and bolt the handle together. I've had very good success bolting PVC, drilling a hole, putting in a bolt with a washer and a nut, and that does hold it together fairly well. You could probably do that here, but I'd like to avoid that if I can. It wasn't necessary previously, so I don't see why it would be necessary right now. I know we're a little thinner over here on this side because the heat gun is losing heat. So I'll focus a little bit more over here, just make sure I can squeeze it a little bit more. Great. That's good enough to start. Let me plug that back in, and now let's get the heat gun. You don't want to burn the hot glue. It's possible to burn if you overheat it, so don't go up to your maximum setting. Remember, almost near the minimum setting could also melt the hot glue. You just want it all to be nice and liquid. Okay, you'll notice it's sort of puddling, melting down. That's a good sign. It means you're basically done. I like to heat the mated surface just so it doesn't instantly set before I can adjust it a tiny bit. And line to line in the center, match them, and squeeze. This is where you could get that clamp back, and you could clamp it again. There you go. Okay, that's really all there is to it. I'm going to go back now and pump this area full, probably with another stick of glue per side. That's quite a lot. I almost want it to be straight. I'm going to fill in this entire gap. You could do it with something else. I have lots of Instamorph plastic. That would be really good. That would be even a little bit firmer than the hot glue. You could do it with, I don't know, anything else pretty much. It really doesn't matter all that much. You could fill it in with epoxy. Although be careful there, because that's harder and it might create additional problems. I like stuff that'll bend here through the handle, because the objective of this was to make a bow that's heavy, but not so heavy. The original bows that I made used a 48-inch recurved core along the lines of my standard youth recurve, with a closer to like 32-inch inner bow. And the draw weight was upwards of 70 pounds at 26 inches. These things were really, really heavy. And no doubt that led to overstressing the pipe and cracking along the upper ends of the handle. This sort of a bow it doesn't have those problems. Not only because it bends more in the handle section, but it's simply lighter in general and longer. So you want heavier, make it shorter, but beware. You know you are going to be pushing the limits of what the PVC can take. A 3/4 inch pipe is really not meant to be a 70 or 80 pound bow when it's actually having to bear the weight. And remember, the thicker you make it, the more tensile on one end and compressive stress on the other side that you're going to encounter. So the back of the handle was probably under huge amounts of compressive forces, and the PVC just gave, my guess is it was just a normal stress failure. It wasn't due to overheating or a bad pipe. It's possible, but my suspicion is that it was just too much stress. My normal bows are more on the order of 45 pounds, maybe 50 pounds for those same bows without reinforcement with a double bow. So you can see that that's an awful lot, an awful big difference. Okay. This is now heated enough to have set. So like I say, that's pretty much it. That's really all there is to it. Well, there you go. Okay. Spoke too soon, and I let it go too soon. So, okay, step one, just go ahead and do that again. Rough up the surfaces is probably not a bad idea before you glue it. Smooth surfaces don't glue as well. But it's very easy to repair, very easy to fix, and it's mostly just to hold it together. Again, using large amounts of it, yeah, that's still very hot. Okay, but you do get the idea. So I'll show you the finished bow. Once I'm done packing in it on the sides like I mentioned, I'm also going to go and do something else, and that's wrap it with fiberglass strapping tape around the handle to hold it together. Those two procedures work very well since strapping tape, reinforced strapping tape, has very little give to it. Alright, I will show you the completed bow another day, and we'll go and shoot it and have some fun. So thanks for watching YouTube. Just wanted to show you guys, here it is again now, fully filled in at the sides, and it's still a touch warm, but it's not falling apart like it was. At any rate, that's the basic idea, that's the basic bow, and really that's all there is to it. So now cut the knock, make your strings, string it up and shoot. Like I said, we'll see it later. So thanks for watching.